Information Officer for the Boulder Police Department. Thank you for coming so we can give you this update on yesterday's officer-involved shooting. Your first speaker is going to be Deputy Chief Ron Gossage, Rongosage. Your second speaker is going to be District Attorney Michael Dougherty, Michael Dougherty. They'll give you some preliminary information because we're still in the early stages of this investigation, and then they will take a few questions. But again, a lot of this information is still in the preliminary stages. So right now I'm going to turn it over to Deputy Chief Gossage to walk you through some of what happened yesterday. Deputy Chief.
Thank you all for being here today. I have some preliminary information about the officer-involved shooting that took place last night near the North Boulder Rec Center in the 3100 block of Broadway in Boulder. In the spirit of full transparency, I will share with you everything that I am able to share at this time. Thank you for your understanding that this is an ongoing investigation, and additional and updated details will be released later. At approximately 4:10 p.m. on December the 17th, our 911 dispatchers received a call from a driver who reported that he was approached while he was in his car in the driveway exit of the North Boulder Rec Center by a woman who had a gun and pointed it at him. Our first officers arrived on scene at approximately 4:12 p.m. About 2 minutes later, at approximately 4:14 p.m., the officers located the suspect near the rec center. The suspect did not comply with officers' verbal commands. Instead, she headed northbound on Broadway on foot. The officers followed her and attempted to gain compliance. They informed her that if she did not cooperate, she could have force used against her. She did not cooperate and continued walking away, turning down residential side streets. The officers followed her and used less lethal attempts to get her to comply with their orders. They also saw her remove a gun from her purse. Officers followed her and attempted to de-escalate the situation for approximately 15 minutes, using less lethal strategies and verbal commands. De-escalation attempts proved unsuccessful, and officers discharged their weapons, striking the suspect at approximately 4:26 p.m. Immediately afterwards, officers began to administer medical aid to include chest compressions, a tourniquet, and chest seals. Boulder Fire Rescue arrived a few minutes later to assist them with medical aid. Unfortunately, after nearly 40 minutes of administering emergency medical aid, the woman died at the scene. The gun the woman was holding was later to be determined a replica Beretta pistol. Thankfully, no officers or other people were injured during this incident. The use of deadly force is something that no officer wants to do. The taking of a life is the most serious action an officer can take. The incident is a tragedy, and our thoughts are with the friends and family of the woman who died. Per state law, Boulder County Investigation Team took over the investigation last night, as happens in any case where an officer has fired his weapon. They are currently conducting interviews with the officers involved and other witnesses, and I am unable to give more specifics about what occurred during the confrontation with the suspect. When they're finished with the investigation, they will present their findings to the District Attorney's Office. Thank you for your patience as the Boulder County Investigation Team continues to conduct a thorough investigation into this incident. The Boulder County Coroner's Office will identify the suspect, notify next of kin, and determine the cause and manner of death. I also want to mention that detectives are also seeking information about a trespassing call that police received and responded to earlier in the day at the rec center at approximately 3:13 p.m. It was a report of a woman inside of a bathroom refusing to leave. It appears that the woman who was trespassing at the North Boulder Rec Center was the same woman who was later shot. With that, I'll turn it over to Michael Dougherty from the DA's office.
Good afternoon. I'm Michael Dougherty. I'm the district attorney. I appreciate the media being here today. Given the loss of life, this is an incredibly tragic incident, and it's very unfortunate that we're gathered here today. I wanted to join you today, talk a little bit about the process going forward, and to answer any questions you have about that process. After the tragic shooting that took place yesterday, the Boulder Police Department immediately notified the Boulder County Critical Incident Team. It's a multi-agency team made up of detectives, investigators, and crime scene analysts from different police agencies, so that the Boulder Police Department is not actively involved in the investigation into the officer's use of force. As required by state law, it's a multi-agency team that is determined to, and I can assure you will conduct, an incredibly thorough, independent, and objective investigation, and then turn it over to the District Attorney's Office for a review. The reason the Boulder Police Department notified the team immediately is so that the team could be involved from the very beginning, including the witness interviews, and given the time of day and location, there were a number of civilian witnesses. I would encourage civilian witnesses to come forward and speak with the Boulder Police Department about what happened. We've already received some video from civilian witnesses who were there. We will take all this material in through the team as part of their investigation. Witness interviews are being conducted currently. Once that investigation is completed, which of course will also include body-worn camera video, crime scene analysis, ballistics evidence, and so on, that's all turned over to the District Attorney's Office, and it's my responsibility and the responsibility of our team at the DA's office to review the entire investigation and determine whether the officer's use of force under the law was justified or that they should be charged criminally for any of their actions from yesterday. That's the standard and requirement that we have in any case involving an officer's use of deadly or potentially deadly physical force. We will let you know once the investigation's been completed and turned over to the District Attorney's Office. As the members of the media are likely aware, but it's important to remind everyone, once that review is completed by my office, we will announce a decision as to whether any of the officers should be criminally charged or whether their use of force was justified under the law. I then, as I do after every officer-involved incident, host a community town hall where I share all of the materials, the evidence, the videos, and so on that led to the decision. So that's going to be happening in the weeks ahead, but I will just circle back to what I said at the very start. This is an absolute tragedy anytime there's a loss of life. I could promise you that the investigation is going to be thorough, as it should be any time an officer uses deadly physical force. The Boulder Police Department notifying the team immediately allowed us to start the investigation immediately yesterday. That continued throughout last night and continues, as you heard already from Boulder PD, throughout today and in the days and weeks ahead. I'm happy to take any questions you have, and I'll turn it over to the Public Information Officer for the Boulder Police Department to walk us through that process.
Lucas, hey.
What is the status of the employment of the officers?
Sorry, I didn't hear your question.
What is the status of the employment of the officers?
They're employed currently per policy. They're on administrative leave with pay.
How many officers discharged their weapon?
2 that I'm aware of.
And did the woman, was her gun loaded? Was her gun loaded?
I don't want to give the details of the investigation until it's fully complete, and quite frankly, I don't know.
You said it was a replica of a Beretta, or it displayed what that means.
So it looks like a firearm. It feels like a firearm. It says Beretta on it. It looks like a pistol.
Is it a firearm?
It looks like a firearm.
But does it function
I
like
haven't seen it myself, so
Can you say how many shots were fired?
don't know that. That's part of the investigation.
Can you say where she was shot?
Don't know that either. That'll be up to the coroner to determine that.
So I'm just. Can you help us understand the? I don't understand the replica thing. Like, was it a gun or was it like?
It's a gun.
It isn't.
Ron,
It,
can I?
please.
So is it just like if someone if like a replica Camaro is still a car, is a replica Beretta still a gun? I guess.
I don't know about the car analogy. I can tell you with replica firearms, when the phrase replica firearm is used, it means it looks exactly like a real gun. It does not function like a real gun, so I hope that answers your question. But it's a replica Beretta. I will just tell you, having been at the scene last night at about 1 o'clock in the morning, seeing it on the grass right next to where the woman fell, it looks like a real gun. Obviously, it has to be forensically analyzed by the experts, so I'm not going to rely on my word in saying it, but that'll be part of the investigation in the report, is what that replica gun looked like and how it functioned. But to be really clear, and I appreciate Boulder PD's transparency on this, it's a replica firearm that does not act as an actual firearm. So of course, under the law, as you may know, when that happens in cases, we're required to analyze what the officers knew at the time and whether their belief and observations were reasonable or not. The Colorado courts over the years have found that we have to look back at what the officers knew, what they believed, and whether their beliefs and observations were reasonable or not, and that'll be a focus of the investigation going forward. The fact that it's a replica firearm, to me, just makes this all the more tragic. Knowing and understanding what the officers saw and observed, that still remains to be determined. That's going to be part of the investigation.
Was the replica firearm seen at all by witnesses earlier in the day during the trespass?
I don't believe that there was a firearm displayed during the trespass.
Did you like point it at officers at all, do you know? During the
So that's part of what's going to be investigated. I have not yet seen any of the body-worn camera video or video from the rec center or wherever else there might be video. That will certainly be a focus of the investigation. As the deputy chief noted earlier, the original 911 calls to the rec center were for the woman pointing the firearm at a person in their vehicle trying to leave the rec center parking lot. Beyond that, I don't have specifics for you, but I know that's going to be a focus of the investigation going forward.
Was that a robbery attempt or a carjacking attempt, or do you know why?
I don't want to make assumptions just yet, and I don't know for certain, but that'll be a focus, and that'll be something we share once we have those witnesses interviewed and all of those things confirmed.
Is there anything you can say about mental health of the woman involved?
Not at this time, no. I think your question about her mental health is something that we'll certainly look at during the course of the investigation, but I don't have any information, and I don't think the Boulder Police Department has any information one way or the other just yet. I would just highlight, since this just happened yesterday late afternoon into the early evening, it's very early in the investigation, so that'll be part of what we go through, as we do anytime we investigate these.
Did she have any previous criminal history or familiarity with your partner at all?
That's under investigation, and the Boulder County investigation team will deal with all that.
Can you give a description of her so any potential witnesses, if they saw someone matching the description, they can come to you?
What I could tell you is that she is a female. I think that the Boulder County investigation team is diligently working to identify witnesses, and will note that description when the time is appropriate.
She has been identified by.
The coroner's office does that. I don't know that she's been identified.
And I think the biggest thing, what we're going to do next is we're asking for the public's help because it was a very public area. We know a lot of people saw, I think, parts of it. And so what we're really asking is for the community thinks they saw any aspect of this to submit the information to the police department so that we can run down all aspects of this investigation. I'm going to send out a news release shortly with all these details, and if we can have a better description of the female, we'll put that in there as well. But I think that's pretty much all we can release right now since they're still doing interviews and it's still so preliminary in this investigation.
I just have one more quick question. We saw something similar in Denver a few weeks ago in Commons Park. There was somebody with a gun waving it around. Officers wound up using their weapons too. Is there like a different heightened sensitivity to these situations for your officers when they encounter something like this in such a heavily populated area?
So what I can say about that is that this is extremely sensitive to the officers anytime there's a gun involved. They were responding to a report of a gun being pointed at a person who was trying to leave the rec center parking lot in his car. So several officers responded, and upon contact immediately used tactics to combat her having that gun and using it on them or anyone else.
Can you be more specific on those tactics? Like what was done that was like a non-lethal means to arrest her?
That's a good question, and that's exactly right. So Boulder Police Department officers used less lethal tactics to try to gain control of her and get her into custody. So that's going to be part of what we look at through the critical incident team. That was part of the crime scene analysis that was going on all through last night, and that'll be part of what we release to the public once we have our full investigation and review of that investigation complete.
And was she with
she with anyone?
She was alone during this incident.
Can you identify the officers involved?
Not at this point.
Not at this time. That'll be done later.
Thank you for coming. We're gonna put a little bit more. I know because we're gonna get the same questions, but we'll try and answer some more of what you had in the news release. But thank you, and we will release the officers' names since a little later on. So thank you for coming.